YouTube. Okay, excellent. So, I hope everyone's doing well today. I have a very interesting series of events that have been making it hard for me to do these live streams, but that is actually what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I am trying to fix my routine, and sometimes it can feel like the world is against you. Like today, my internet went down and I wanted to stream from my really nice camera. It's a new camera that I've just bought, and I can't do that on my Wi-Fi if Spectrum doesn't want to let me, the local internet provider. So I have my plan B ready to stream on my 4G internet through my smartphone. So if you're watching this in the rewatch afterwards and you're on YouTube, then scroll down and you should see some timestamps of everything that's going to be said today, and you can click and go ahead in all of the various questions and things that we discuss. And I want to tackle a very specific problem that I've had, and I want to share with you guys. Some of you may have had this as well, that sometimes the strategy you might have to start a learning project may be it may be sound itself. So I've had many language learning projects, and I think that the method I have for where I want to get in the project itself could indeed, I mean, there's always ways I can improve it, but it's pretty solid as it is. Now the problem is I've tried to kind of kick off some language learning projects over the last year or so, and I've not been successful, but it's not been because of language learning reasons. It's been because just getting into a project has been too hard. So one of the biggest reasons is my routine, because you guys may know that about 2 years ago I was very actively writing 4 books, the language hacking Spanish, Italian, French and German books, and that took a lot of time and energy, way more than I expected. So with that I actually spent sometimes up to 20 hours a day working, and that meant that for that whole year I did great to get those books out, but I had a big backlog and I was very tired, and it took me a long time to catch up. And it kind of made my ability to have consistent routines, it kind of messed with that. Since I spent the whole time working specifically just on those books, I didn't check my emails, I didn't maintain my languages. So that's that kind of thing that when I've tried to get back into it since, I've run into problems. So I'm essentially having a routine reset, as it were. And I'm trying to fix my routine, and I have a few ideas to do this. So for instance, when you think about it, the kind of problems you're likely to face if you begin a project and the things that would slow you down, if you can fix those ahead of time. So I'm actually getting all set for language learning projects into the year, maybe just before the summer. So in the meantime, I want to be fixing the problems that I know would slow me down. So when I do start the project, I can start it at full speed and without any issues. So with the routine for me, that's been a huge problem, because I might think to myself, this week I'm going to listen to some Mandarin podcasts, and then I'll just kind of know that. I might have a post-it on my computer reminding me of that. And what will happen is, I'm just noticing my comment thing on this isn't quite working, so I'm going to deactivate it. Sorry about that. So what I'm going to be doing instead is I might end up having this plan of action, but then something will happen. I'll feel too tired that day, or something will come and mess with my original plan, and I'll end up spending time on that. And you'll always have challenges. So I've had problems arise in my successful language learning projects. I've had days that I've been sick. I've had family emergencies, whatever it may be. But I feel that recently it's been a very different situation in terms of my ability to kind of recover from that to successfully then go on and continue the project. So what I wanted to do to change that was see how are these things and why are these things happening and what can I do to change when they do happen. So for instance, I wanted to make part of my routine to do these live videos with you guys. And that's been very difficult. If anyone on YouTube might have seen, I actually created a schedule a couple of days ago. I was planning to do a live video. And then on that day, I kind of was too tired. I was hit with a wave of tiredness and I wasn't able to focus. And I felt like if I did go live, then I wouldn't have been able to do a video that I'd be able to explain myself in. And so that's tiredness, and I kind of tried to see why was I feeling that tired and solve it. And then today, my internet is just not working, and that's usually going to mean you can't do a live stream, but you can always figure out a plan B. So I wanted to do this on YouTube and Facebook and so on, and over the last hour, I investigated how can I do a live stream that splits into multiple streams from my mobile phone. And now I have this so that in future, if the same problem arises, I have a solution to it. So if you think about this in your own project, if you find that you are, for instance, you have kids and something happens that you need to take care of them, then if you have a plan B in mind of a next door neighbor who can help you at the drop of a hat, or any other kind of solution like that, that you know you can set up ahead of time to have the plan B for when things go wrong, that can make a world of difference. So I'm going to see any of your comments on a separate chat that Holly is going to be sharing with me. So feel free to write everything that you think you might want to talk about relevant, and I will I'm going to see them passed on by her. So essentially, if I'm going to be fixing these problems, I have to think of ahead of time. So essentially, you imagine that something will go wrong, and you have this understanding that you will not have a perfect study week, or even a perfect study day, or a perfect study hour. You might be less efficient than you wish, and something may crop up to mess up those plans that you had. And in that case, if it happens, then instead of thinking, oh, I'm a failure, I won't be able to move forward with this, use that time to see how can I solve this problem realistically. You don't want to spend all of your time investigating just how to solve problems, but invest your time into just seeing how can I make it so that if and when this issue comes up in a later study session, what can I do to make sure it won't prevent me from maintaining my momentum. And that's why today I've got this setup I can do from my mobile phone. And that means in future, if I'm about to go live, then and the internet goes down, because internet is not very reliable here in America. It's like I've been in third world countries with much better internet consistency and speed, but you accept that that is part of the possibilities of things going wrong. And so this last hour, I've been able to figure out a plan B. And that means that in future, if the internet's down, I have my plan B ready and I can implement it immediately. And this is the kind of thing that if you think about it, if you were studying your target language and you needed the internet to have a call via Skype with your teacher. And if you were in the same situation I was in and your main Wi-Fi went down, then maybe you have a budget set aside that, you know, like if you normally wouldn't use so much of your 3G or 4G internet, then you might decide, okay, it's very important that I don't miss these calls, so I might be able to spend $10 or €10 on a data package that gives you a boost so you have enough data to be able to go ahead with that call, and then you could have it on your phone instead of on your computer. And so that's just one example that you plan for the worst. You don't have to plan for every possible bad situation, but instead it's more fixing things as they happen. So then when an internet down situation arises, that's happening maybe the first time in your project, then you know what to do when it happens later on in your project. Okay, and Joanna on YouTube is joking, maybe you need a personal assistant. I would definitely need a personal assistant for the amount of work things that I let get on top of me. But even with that, like I have people who help me with a lot of things on the blog and Fluent in 3 months. And I know a lot of people would think, oh, if only I had an assistant to outsource these things to, that would solve my problems. And I have been lucky enough to be in that position. But even then, it doesn't, there are things that are still going to go wrong. No matter what you think you need to solve all your problems, that's going to lead to, it maybe will solve a handful of your problems, but you're still going to have things that arise during your project. So it's a good solution if you can afford an assistant. But in my case, I've just found that with my own routine, even when I have people helping me out, I still have difficulty that it prevents me from moving forward with that. So a few other things that I wanted to kind of mention when it comes to fixing your routine. If you imagine you're getting into your intensive project and you are really trying to put yourself fully at it, but you still hit the plateaus, and let's for a second imagine this is not a language learning plateau situation, because I talk about that in other videos. And if you guys have general language learning questions, I'm going to do another general Q&A next week at some stage. But if you just reach this plateau, and it's not necessarily the project that you're learning that's holding you back, but you just feel like you don't have it in you to have the same level of passion, motivation, and so on, then maybe there are other things you just never even thought about. Like, for instance, the live session that I missed 2 days ago was because I wasn't getting enough sleep over the last couple of weeks. And the obvious solution is get more sleep. And that's obvious enough, and people can tell you that, but people just don't get enough sleep as it is. But I realized there was another thing that I could do here. I tried to see the sleep that I was trying to get. Why was it not making me restful enough? And it turned out it's because I was having backaches. I was feeling uncomfortable, and I was like, when I tried to lie down, I noticed I was tossing and turning, and I wasn't getting a full night's sleep. So I went to a chiropractor. He turned my back and twisted my neck, and then I felt amazing, and I got a great night's sleep. So that's it's an indirect solution that you wouldn't originally think about. Like, the problem is lack of quality sleep, and we don't all have time for more sleep, but are there ways you can get better sleep? So for instance, whenever it got noisy in my previous apartment, I'm very lucky there's not a lot of traffic outside my window these days, but my previous apartment, whenever it got noisy, I would usually put in noise cancelling headphones, and then that would help me get to sleep. So just even something as basic as a good night's sleep, that helps you with your focus. You need to be able to focus when you're in learning mode, and if you're not well rested, you're not going to get that focus, and that's essential. So just keep that in mind. Is sleep one of the things that is holding you back? Okay, let's see. So a couple of questions. I'll catch up on the ones you guys have been saying. So over on YouTube, Michal Brahnoch says, where are you now? In which city? Let me see if you guys can make this out in my office there. That says NYC. It's possible this is reversed. I don't know if it does a mirror image for you guys, but I'm in New York. I live in Manhattan, which is all the more reason when my internet company said the internet's down in your area. I'm like, in New York City. This is supposed to be the head or like a main hub or whatever, but anyway, yeah, I live in New York City, and I do like it here. There's a lot of great opportunities for practicing languages, for interacting with many cultures, and I'm going to do some, I've been wanting to do a series of videos to show you guys the languages of New York, and that's going to be a possibility now this year because I've got a better recording setup. Okay, next we have a question that Holly actually wanted to throw in. I've mentioned some good apps for organization before. What kind of apps should I talk about for time management? Okay, let me see a couple of apps and tools. So I'm a fan of Rescue Time because I have Rescue Time installed on my phone and on my computer. And what that does is it tracks the apps that I use, especially if you tend to spend a lot of your time and your working time on these devices, then it'll track them, it'll track the websites you tend to use, and then at the end of the week, you can look at that and you can see where your time went. Because the temptation for a lot of us, I'm a busy man, lots of us are busy, but the temptation is to think I'm too busy to find the time for my learning project. But ultimately, when I started looking at rescue time, I noticed I would just kind of tend to go in the direction of hanging out on Facebook, and I was spending way too much time on Facebook. And so what I realized was I needed to find ways to prevent myself from doing that. And there's other tools you can install in your browser that I've talked about before. And then one I have on my computer is, I think it's called Cold Turkey. And that kind of cuts off my internet cold turkey, or cuts off particular websites access to the apps and programs access to the internet. So that's another thing that just means that when you are working, you're prevented from wasting time. And then in terms of the positive time management, any good to-do tool that lets you just think of things you need to do, and you add it to that to kind of help you streamline the process. But one thing I do want to get into is not necessarily a tool or an app, but a scheduling process. And I'm going to do a different live video about that very soon, because I want to share my whole process during this project of time management, which is my own. I'm trying to improve my own time management as well as sharing it with you guys. So I will be talking about the scheduling tool I do at the start of every day. And this week especially, it has changed a lot of my issues that I've been having to really finish some tasks that I've been wanting to do. Okay, and I'll get back to a couple of these questions after I cover just a couple of quick points. So keep the questions coming. I just wanted to say a few other things that have been helping me and that have been part of my process for improving my time management and my routine. So another one is eating well. One thing that I did is I got into a bad habit over the Christmas break of eating a lot less healthy things, because it's Christmas. People just eat whatever is available. They eat more chocolate and so on. And where sleep kind of gets rid of your focus, eating bad food gets rid of your energy. And I found that I was just low energy when I wanted to, these last weeks, to get into various to-dos and maybe starting a live stream. I'd be doing things slowly, so the time came to begin it and I wouldn't be ready for it because I didn't have the energy to get everything set up on time. So just always think about that. I mean, I know your mammies would be saying this to you anyway, but it bears repeating. Make sure to get yourself good food and exercise. Like, I'm getting back into my running, and whenever I was running last year, I felt so much more rejuvenated. And any kind of exercise like that is going to make a dramatic difference in a learning project, because you're pumping blood through your body. You are getting out of the house. You're using the carbs that you might get from various foods that don't end up kind of sticking with you and slowing you down in other ways. I mean, I'm sure somebody with a way better grasp on biology would be able to explain it much better than I'm currently doing. But ultimately, exercise is going to make a difference. If you're trying to fix your routine, try to find something good you can do consistently, even 15 minutes. This is another one of those things that people tend to think, I don't really have the time for it. So they would imagine that they need to start learning how to play football or something, and then they have to put the time into finding a team and driving across town and all this stuff. Whereas if you just buy dumbbells on Amazon for €10, $10 or whatever, and just use them every morning, even that 15 minutes is going to make a big difference. So find the time, and it will help you dramatically. You lose the 15 minutes in the exercise time, but you might end up gaining a half an hour, or even more in the speed that you're learning and getting through things. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to mention those things. So let me get back to your questions now. And I appreciate you guys, by the way, I should say, I do appreciate you being patient with me starting these live streams, especially today's one. And I'm also learning. I'm trying to improve my timetable. I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting on top of things, and I'm going to have more live streams, hopefully using my much nicer camera. I can't wait to show you guys how crisp that video is when I do get that stream working the next time. Okay, so let's see. El Hassan on YouTube is asking, what upcoming projects are you referring to? So I have essentially two when it comes to language learning projects. One is the maintenance project that I've been talking about for a long time, that I've just wanted to get back into maintaining the languages I already speak so that they don't slip down too much. And this is both my top languages, so I want to be actively using my German, my French, my Spanish, rather than what I'm currently doing, which is I live in New York, so I might, my taxi driver might speak French and I'll speak French with him, but then that's kind of the only opportunity I really take out of a couple of weeks. So what I want to do is I want to implement it so that I have a consistent use of French, whether that be going to a French meetup or Skyping my French teacher again or watching Netflix in French, and like really actively putting that into my timetable, and then getting my weaker languages back up. Like my Mandarin has been a long time in need of its own reawakening project to get it back to where it was before, so that I'd be ready to launch it into the next level. But first I have to get it back to where it was before, and that, like anything, it requires consistency. And if you don't practice, then you're going to lose your skills. So these are the kind of projects I'm talking about, but the problem is it's just been an issue of getting that routine, having the energy for it. And so that's why I'm devoting the next couple of months to solving these problems that have meant that when I try to start the language learning project, they don't really take off. So that's what I mean. And the first project, as it were, is my routine. And I'll talk about other things that, as I'm about to start a learning project, I realize are likely to hold me back. And I'll do that for a few months before I get into my main learning projects. Hope that makes sense. Kylie Robinson on YouTube is laughing about my internet in the USA versus third world, and I'm very, very serious about that. Same goes for healthcare in terms of what value for money, but we won't get into that today. Okay, and Caesar says, do you know Moses McCormick? I do indeed. If you look on my YouTube channel for just look for the word mall on my MALL on my YouTube channel, you'll see a video that the two of us did that was so popular it ended up on the front page of Reddit shortly after I uploaded it, in case you guys didn't know that. So yeah, Moses and I we had a great little collaboration together, and I hope to see him again at some stage. Okay, and DD Dunyalan on YouTube says, hi Benny, I remember you saying on your blog a few years ago that you get up very early and sleep during the day. Is that part of your daily routine? I am very glad to say I have managed to maintain a power nap every day, and this is so crucial for me. I think if I didn't do my power nap, then a lot of things would be tremendously more difficult for me. So what I do is I know most doctors or whatever will recommend that you get 8 hours sleep a night. I actually tend to get an average of 5 or 6 hours sleep a night. And I got less sleep this week because my back issues meant I wasn't comfortable. So less is never going to work for me. But I can work off 5 or 6 hours sleep because in the afternoon I'll have a power nap. And that power nap is an intensive 20 minutes of REM sleep. It's the part of your sleep that tends to give you the most energy. And I work that into my routine, and I am so glad that I did not lose, even during the book writing process. I made sure to keep having those naps because they would be like bursts of energy, almost as good as having an espresso, but you don't have to rely on the caffeine, of course, and then the down you get after the caffeine wears off. So I can highly recommend naps, and there's actually if you go to fluent3months.com/siesta, I wrote a little blog post about my napping adventures around the world, and it gives me the extra couple of hours that 15 minutes or 20 minutes in the middle of the day actually gives me the equivalent of the extra hour so I can get up early in the morning. Yep. Let's see. Next question. Mateos asked, Mateos Niegovsky, if I said that correctly. How many hours are you sleeping? I think I just addressed that. So yeah, 5 or 6 hours plus 15 to 20 minutes in the afternoon. Okay, so Joanna Van Schaik on YouTube says, I'm having a medical problem this year. I'm on a cocktail of different things and low energy is part of the side effects. How do you deal with these limits? Okay, well, if medicine is going to affect your energy levels, then it's a case of understanding how you work around that. So maybe you know that that you have to take the medicine once a day, and shortly after you take it, those next hours are going to be low energy hours. So you might time it such that you take it when you know you're not going to need any focus in a day. And like, for instance, what I tend to do, not a cocktail of medicine, but with my espresso, I will have an afternoon espresso, and I'll do that just before I have my work block. So I time it when I know the chemistry in my body is going to be different. But other than that, there are always going to be challenges, especially when you're taking medicine that other people wouldn't really be able to understand, including me. So what I think helps a lot is if you can find a community of people who might be in a similar situation or taking similar medicine. And it tends to be on Reddit. There are subreddits for people who have anxiety and take anxiety medicine, people who have ADHD, people who have depression, and so on. There are different categories, and when you talk to those communities who understand exactly what you're going through, then they would actually have some thoughts on this, and they would be able to tell you how they find ways to continue to be efficient. So this is something that maybe I can't possibly understand and I can't give you any advice on. But I can tell you from what I've seen, people getting help from these various communities, that you can find people who understand what you're going through, who have found ways to make things work for them. So if you get advice from those people, they've tested out many things, they've tested tools, they've seen what doesn't work, and you may find something comes up consistently that does work. So I hope that helps. Let's see. Chris Windle wishes me all the best from Peru, and appreciates the commitment with language learning. Thank you, Chris. Very, very nice of you to say that. I'm seeing there's lots of off-topic language learning questions. So don't worry. I know many of you have questions about learning particular languages that you are learning, or issues you have with various aspects of language learning, and I do want to help you with that, absolutely. So make sure that you click the notifications. If you're on YouTube, then click the bell icon next to subscribe, and Facebook has an option on my page, I think, to get notifications when goes live, something along those lines. And then you'll see when we schedule next week, I will be doing a general language learning Q&A, and then I'm happy to take any and all of your general questions, but I do like to keep these videos otherwise on topic. So definitely make sure you're subscribed to get notifications, and I will help you out with that, okay? So I've been definitely enjoying you guys' questions here. And so what I'll be doing in terms of my routine is the scheduling tool that I use in the morning is not quite an app or a program. This is more, which is very unlike me. As an electronic engineer, as a tech junkie guy, I use a pen and paper method to set my schedule up. So the next video I will talk you through that. I'll show you the process that I use, and I hope you'll find it interesting. And it's been very good for me, because what happens is I'll make a plan for each day, I'll make a plan for the week, and I'll make a plan for the month. But then each of these plans has a lot of wiggle room. because if you make a plan for the day and things don't go as expected, which is definitely going to happen, you will definitely run into problems, as I have demonstrated this week, just trying to do this live video. But you have a schedule that incorporates that possibility. You have a kind of weighted list of things that are most important that you get to, and then at the end of your day, you look back, you see what went right that you can continue to do, what went wrong that you can learn from, and any kind of system that you do that you make a note of that would help you really analyze your day and see what went wrong and what can I do to fix it. And that's what the key is, I think, in getting on top of your routine and time management, is not really thinking how can I fix the problem forever, but just having an attitude that allows mistakes to happen, allows for setbacks, allows for emergencies in the middle of the day, and that you're okay with that. But then you just, after the fact, see what can I do to make it so that this won't necessarily interfere with me in future. So that's always something to keep in mind, that you look at your routine and be understanding of how it's never going to be perfect. And I think that, like, after I had written the books, I personally wanted to get back into my routine. I wanted to be answering emails. I wanted to be making loads of YouTube videos. And I did keep that up for the first 6 months of the year. I uploaded loads of YouTube videos. But unfortunately, as the year got on, more and more things just kept kind of out of my control, preventing me from succeeding someday. And they weren't really that big a deal. But if 3 things went wrong, I would just get demotivated and I'd be like, oh, I'm never going to have a successful working day. And it's unfortunate when that happens. But ultimately, the solution is just to see what can you do when things are not going as you would expect them to go. And that's kind of the different approach I'm taking this year, because I have a lot of exciting things I want to do. I want to be making loads of videos. I want to be starting events here in New York and meeting people and like helping language learners get together. And I want to be doing loads of live videos to answer all of your questions. So these are the things that I want to change this year that I wasn't really feeling I was doing last year. And the only way to do that is to accept that I'm going to make plans and things are not going to go exactly according to plan. And you learn from them. So up until today, I thought if I wanted to live stream and my Wi-Fi went down, then I just have to like maybe leave the house and find other Wi-Fi. But ultimately, I can do a system like this via my mobile phone, and I can still stream to multiple networks. So that's just something to keep in mind. Let me see a couple of your questions just to wrap up for the last couple of minutes. Let's see. Let's see what you guys are saying. Okay, so concerning the last question from Joanna, peer support is essential. And Joanna says she works with chronic illness patients daily, and finding a community online can really help. Yes, it definitely can. We can't stress this enough. So for instance, there's actually I've got a bunch of friends here in New York who are like myself. They're bloggers, they're entrepreneurs, and they've been successful in getting their message to many people. But there's unique struggles within that. Like, even if you you're doing well business-wise, it means that maybe you feel too much pressure to always maintain this persona when you meet people, and there are stresses people have with that. And one day, I just ended up talking about that with fellow bloggers, and it was a huge relief just being able to share that with them. So always remember that you have people who are going through something similar to what you're going through, and just talking about it can really make a big difference. And Matteo also says that Barbara Oakley said that sleeping well is really important. It can never be stressed enough how sleeping well, eating healthy, drinking enough water. I wouldn't go as far to say like the 8 glasses thing, but just making sure you're getting water and not getting your liquids from mostly sodas or beer or whatever. These kind of things can really make a difference. They can, like, I just feel like a completely different person when I'm getting good sleep, I'm eating healthy, and I'm just drinking lots of water. Kind of just that feeling is so different to when I'm not getting exercise and I'm eating poorly. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. And a peer support, I can also say you can rely on other people's strengths. So something else I want to do as soon as I can is give you guys a tour, a proper tour of my office, and you can see the kind of setup I have to make sure that I can not just stream videos, but my learning process, where I work and so on. And one issue that I had is I'm not a naturally organized person. I like to like move around between projects. And the problem with that is my office space just kept getting chaotic. The papers would pile up. The wires, I can't even show you guys pictures of the wires and where they ended up spaghettifying themselves. And what I did was I accepted help from my partner Lauren, because she is much more organized, and she put everything in special wire organizers. She labeled places for me to put particular papers so they wouldn't just pile up as a general, oh, I'll get to that soon mess. So this is the kind of thing that I don't think any amount of reading books on organizing and reading Marie Kondo's, what is it, Spark Joy or whatever, to kind of set everything in its right place. I don't think any amount of learning that stuff would have made me good enough to do it at the level that Lauren is already good at. So I just let her help me. And sometimes letting other people help you, letting other people who are smarter than you, and I very much accept there are a lot of people way better than me at a lot of things, and if you're open to that and letting them help you with those things, then you can be surprised how much that's going to help you change your routine. And you don't have to be a jack of all trades. You don't have to learn everything. You just have to try to do what you're doing as best as you can. And if you find there's a skill that is too much work to learn, then get help. If you can afford to hire someone, do that. If you have a friend who can help you, do that. But this, in terms of a routine, if every time I tried to solve a problem, I realized, do you know what? If I learned how to code in JavaScript myself, then in future I could solve this problem in no time. That is not a good way to go about it. It might be better if I just say, maybe I should hire a coder and he can do that for me. If I'm talking about like a problem on my website, for instance. And I think a lot of people take on too many things and they end up trying to solve all the problems themselves, but try to share things with people who are skilled at whatever the issue you might have is. And I'll talk about the specifics, and I'll give you guys a tour of how Lauren organized my stuff, which is to me, it's very foreign, and yet now that she's done it, it's so intuitive, and I won't have to worry about my office turning into a giant chaos pile, as it has been since I originally moved in here. And now it's just so different. So I'll show you guys that as soon as I can. All right, let's see a few more of your questions in the last couple of minutes. So Talitha Jane White on YouTube. This is great. Time management is always a problem for me. Getting my homework done for my italki class is always a struggle, even though I'm an English teacher myself and see the need for it. Yeah, so one thing that I've found with my language lessons is just the pressure of having one scheduled is going to kind of force me to work towards it. So with italki, I would have scheduled lessons, let's say Wednesday, 5 p.m. And I would, in my calendar, set aside all of Wednesday afternoon before the class to make sure I'm as ready as I possibly can be. And just that, having this pivot point in my week that things work up towards, it means I don't really have a last minute rush to finish my homework or something, because you learn, and this is the thing I was saying earlier, that maybe you'll schedule an italki lesson and it'll be tomorrow morning, and then it'll show up and you realize I didn't have any time to do my homework, I didn't have time to practice this, I didn't have time to do that. So you learn that the solution is, next time that you schedule something, you also schedule a few hours before it to solve all those problems. So it's a kind of learning as you go thing. But easier said than done. I know it's very hard to find the time, but always remember, and I'll kind of talk about that in another session, just the ways that I have reduced the things that tend to take away my time, that have helped dramatically to give me the extra hours for these things. Okay? DJ D Donielin on YouTube says, do people ever recognize you in public in New York or other cities? They do. I have a supermarket down here, and I ran into a lovely family who were just passing through New York, and they were staying at an Airbnb nearby. And the guy said, hey, I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I was out getting milk or something. And he's like, did you give a TEDx talk? And I was like, that's a weird thing to say to a random stranger, but I could say, yes, I did. And he's like, you're Benny. And so it does happen. And that happened to me just around the corner here. So it's always fun. And I had a nice little chat with them about their language learning adventures. Okay, and Jonathan Huggins on Facebook, kudos for promoting good health in addition to language learning. My Instagram story running routine is, yeah, you've been enjoying that. I'll be getting right back into it, and this is always getting back to projects. You guys who would have followed my especially Instagram updates last year would have known I had the goal to run a marathon. And because of my especially routine problems, I started very well, but the second half of last year, I was tired a lot. I was late for things, and I didn't get the kind of consistent exercise I wanted to. So I wasn't successful in that goal. But I did learn a lot of things, and I ended up running 16 miles. I did go to the start of the New York City Marathon, and 16 miles is nothing to sniff at. That's maybe 25 kilometers, I think. Because, you know, in America, I got to use the imperial system. That's what all the signage around here was. So that was an interesting learning opportunity, because I'm signed up to run the marathon again this year. That's among my projects, and it's great because I don't really need to have a learn how to run project, because I've already gone through that. This year it's more about keeping the consistency up, and in solving my routine problems, I also want to be ready to just run in the morning. And one thing that's helped for that, if you guys are into running, is just having your running clothes ready. So I would go to sleep in my like running t-shirt, running shorts, if it's that kind of season, or in the case of the current weather, I would have my running gear ready to go, because what I found was a challenge when I didn't run some days. It's because I would start my day and then I'd think, okay, where's my armband that holds my phone so I track my GPS location? And where are my running socks? I could have sworn I had them over here somewhere. And then doing that on the morning when you're supposed to be out running, it ended up taking me so much time to get these things together, and realizing, because it's dark, I didn't want to turn the light on because I'd wake Lauren up, that I just came to the decision many times where I was like, oh, this is just too hard. I don't want to do it today. And that kind of happened enough times to stop me from getting into that routine. But since then, the last, especially the running that I've started to do this year, I've changed it to making sure the night before everything is ready. So there's no thinking. There's no chance of me like seeing I don't have something, maybe going to find it and getting distracted with something else and checking my phone in the meantime, and then getting into email or something, like going down this rabbit hole of distractions. So instead, it's just ready, and I make it so I don't even think about it. The clothes are there, I put them on, I'm out the door. And that's all there is to it. And I'm glad you guys enjoyed that process. So that got me up to 16 miles. But I'm going to be training again this year as much as I can to run the full marathon by November. And just the running consistently is going to give the exercise side that's going to help everything else that I'm going to try and do this year. Okay? Let's see, Water Clean Guy on YouTube is saying when the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo are happening, they're hoping to understand enough Japanese to understand the play-by-play events. That's a very good goal. Make sure you learn your Japanese as much as you can in the direction of sports events. Maybe join Japanese sports teams or follow Japanese forums that discuss sports. Always trying to like gear it in that direction. Alan Watson YouTube asked me if I've used a particular app, and I haven't used that one, so I might try it out. If you have suggestions for what makes it interesting, let me know. And that's another thing. I'm very happy to hear as I tell you guys what I'm doing to fix my routine, the ways I'm solving the problems as they arise, accepting that there will always be problems. I'm very curious to hear what tools you guys are using, and I'll be very happy to test them out and share them with people. And after a few months of making sure I'm able to just get back into learning things, that means that I can have a very successful language learning project in a few months' time. So yeah, that is essentially what I wanted to do today. I'm very glad I was able to successfully get this stream to start. And now I have a system in place that if my internet goes down, which it probably will, let's face it, this is not exactly a country that has the kind of internet standards that they have in, I don't know, Singapore or something. So like this is a solution I have for future, and now I know that, but I'm going to be streaming mostly from my station over there, where I got loads of really cool things that pop up and that I can show you during the stream. And so I'll be doing that next week. Very soon you'll see the schedule go up, and otherwise I'll be streaming a little this weekend, but that's not going to be part of this routine thing. That's just going to be my gaming stuff, so you'll see that on my other channels as always. And I think that's enough for today. I will be answering all of your general language learning questions next week too. Make sure you're following notifications. You'll see general language learning Q&A. It'll come up. It'll be one of the days in the week. And thanks everyone for checking this out. And I hope to see you again very soon. Happy language learning.